Data contracts. For the last few years, that phrase has been absolutely everywhere in the data world, right? We've all heard it. We've probably all had some pretty intense debates about it. But what if that entire conversation kind of missed the point? That's the big idea we're going to dig into today.
It all really starts with a feeling, a question that I'm sure keeps a lot of us up at night. Whether you're an engineer, an analyst, or a leader, you know this feeling. It's that nagging sense that the data pipelines we all depend on are just brittle, like they could shatter at any moment because of some tiny, unexpected change way upstream. So why is that?
Well, according to the source material we're looking at, the problem is this. The whole industry got stuck. We had all these really energetic debates about what to call things, how to classify data contracts, but we totally failed to talk about the most important part. How do we actually build the systems that make them work?
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at that missed conversation. Then, we'll dive into the two very different worlds of data and software engineering. After that, we'll reframe contracts as something familiar, engineering specifications. Then, we'll see why AI is making this change so urgent. And finally, we'll lay out a real, concrete path for making these contracts a reality.
The thing about the data contracts debate is that it was super lively, but it kind of skimmed over the really tough engineering questions. The important stuff like, how are these things actually enforced? How do they change and evolve over time? And what in the world happens when they fail? These details, they just got pushed aside for more high-level philosophical chats. All right, now this is where it gets really, really interesting. While the data world was busy debating all these concepts, the software engineering world, they weren't waiting around. They were quietly solving the exact same problems of scale and complexity, but with a completely different playbook. And this slide really lays out that huge divide. On one side, you've got the data world's approach. It's all about descriptive documents, social agreements made in meetings, and what we all call tribal knowledge. On the other side is the software world. Their agreements are executable constraints. They're machine-readable rules that are automatically, programmatically enforced. See the difference? One relies on people remembering things, the other relies on the system itself.
As software systems got more and more complex, they realized that human coordination just couldn't keep up. It was a bottleneck. Documentation gets stale, people's assumptions drift apart, it's a mess. So the answer wasn't more meetings or more process. Nope, it was to build with more precision, using specifications as the absolute core of system design.
And that brings us to the absolute core idea here. If we start looking at data contracts through that software engineering lens, they stop being this new, fuzzy governance concept. Instead, they become something we already know, a familiar engineering pattern. It's just spec-driven development, but applied to the world of data.
So what is a spec-driven data contract, really? Well, it's a formal specification, a blueprint. It defines not just the shape of the data, but its meaning, its rules, its invariance. And here's the kicker. It's versioned like code, it's validated automatically, and it's enforced by the system itself. That's how you create a stable, reliable interface between the people who produce data and the people who consume it. I love this quote because it just nails it. The spec isn't some document you write up and then promptly forget about in a wiki somewhere. In a spec-driven world, the specification is the executable reality. It becomes the single source of truth that the entire system is built and checked against.
So the crucial point here isn't the idea of an agreement. We've had those forever. The difference is all in the execution. It's operational. Software engineering treats these agreements as things that are enforced by machines. For the most part, the data world has treated them as descriptive documents for humans to read. And that one little operational difference, well, it changes everything.
Now you might be thinking, okay, this all makes sense, but why is this such a big deal right now? Well, the answer is the explosion of automation, and specifically AI agents. They are the catalyst that is forcing this entire conversation to change. Think about it. AI agents and other automated systems are fundamentally changing the game. They can't sit in on your team meeting to understand context. They can't read a wiki page and infer the meaning. They operate on one thing and one thing only: explicit machine-readable rules. They are literally forcing our data platforms to finally speak their language.
Let's just break that down for a second. An AI agent can't guess your team's unwritten rules. It can't infer the business logic that you call tribal knowledge. If you don't give it a formal specification, it's forced to guess. And when we're talking about our core data infrastructure, approximation and guesswork are, frankly, a recipe for disaster. It's just not an option.
Okay, so how do we do it? How do we stop just talking about these ideas and start building actual infrastructure?
This last section is all about a practical, actionable plan to get there.
So here it is, the path forward in 5 key steps. It all starts with treating your schemas as the core specification, not just as an afterthought or documentation. From there, you encode your rules about quality and meaning directly into the system. You enforce these contracts automatically, at clear boundaries. You start versioning your data interfaces with the same discipline you use for your APIs. And finally, you make ownership machine readable, so the system itself knows who to call when something breaks.
And let's be super clear about this. This is not about adding more bureaucracy or slowing people down. It's the exact opposite. It's about removing human bottlenecks and ambiguity so that our automated systems can interact with data reliably. It's about making our data platforms legible to other machines.
This quote really just sums up the whole missed opportunity, doesn't it? Data contracts were never the end goal. They were supposed to be the foundation, that stable, reliable layer that we could have used to build more scalable, more intelligent, and just plain better data systems.
And so that leaves us with one last question for you to think about. I want you to look at your own data platforms, your own pipelines, and ask yourself this. Are they built on social agreements and tribal knowledge, on ideas? Or are they built on explicit, verifiable, and enforceable rules, on real infrastructure? Because the future of data really depends on that answer.